9 a.m. out west, and we are on the hunt here at FoxNews.com this very, very Super Tuesday. And what a show we have for you today. We are, of course, America's election headquarters, and therefore the great Brit Hume will be in the house in about 30 minutes' time to break down the politics for all of us. He's a fabulous political mind, as you well know. Looking forward to having Lord Hume of Virginia talking to us. But first, we have two other great political minds. Marianne Marsh, former advisor to Senator John Kerry, joining us from Boston, and Ed Pozzuoli, former advisor to John Huntsman's presidential campaign, with us from our Miami bureau. Marianne, let me get to you first. Do we wake up tomorrow morning and say, OK, you know, it's still not a done deal in terms of delegates, but it is a done deal in terms of Mitt Romney?
It all comes down to whether Mitt Romney wins Ohio and/or Tennessee. He won't be the nominee because even if he has a boffo night tonight, he'll only have about a third of the delegates that he needs to clinch the nomination. But without Ohio and Tennessee, those lingering questions about Mitt Romney and the enthusiasm about him will continue. I will add one other point. If the turnout here in Massachusetts is really low today, Mitt Romney's home state, he's here tonight. He's voting this afternoon in his hometown of Belmont, one of five. But the people who know him best here, where he was governor, that will also feed into the whole storyline of that people aren't enthusiastic about Mitt Romney. That could be a problem.
Ed, how do you see tonight going? Do you think Mitt Romney is in a position to win Ohio, obviously to win Massachusetts, to run the board and to wrap this thing up, if not in practice in terms of delegates, in the perception?
Well, the perception is going to be that he is poised to be the big winner tonight. So the expectations are high. The key states, I agree, the key states are Tennessee and Ohio. If he can win both of those states, this is the beginning of the end of the campaign, of the nomination process.
All right, so we have 10 states voting, 419 delegates at stake. But Marianne, you believe that this really, the night depends on the two states you're talking about, and in particular, one, Ohio, is the one to really watch for our viewers as they watch the results come in this evening.
Well, I think Tennessee is just as important. Ohio, a key battleground state in the general election, and you can't win the presidency really without it. And Mitt Romney's had a tough time connecting with blue-collar voters. Ohio is one of those states where that's the referendum there. Tennessee, unless he wins something in the South, which he's yet to do, and Tennessee's the one he's got the best shot in tonight, the South is the foundation for any Republican running for the White House. And without it, Mitt Romney can't win the White House either because he doesn't have the base of the party. So I think those are the two pillars that people are going to look at tonight to see whether or not Mitt Romney, whether he's the inevitable nominee or not, really has a shot in November against Barack Obama.
Ed, would you agree that Ohio is obviously an important battleground state? Mitt Romney needs to show he can win at least the primary there, and he has to show some strength in the South too. Are those the key pillars that you see as well?
Well, let's put appropriate context. 2 weeks ago, Romney's campaign was down by double digits in both Ohio and Tennessee. Organization matters. The ability to run a nationwide campaign, multiple primary sites today, prove out that Romney's organization is superior. That will bode well in November. With respect to Ohio, he actually can win Ohio by taking most of the delegates because in some 18 congressional districts, the Santorum campaign did not submit the right paperwork. So he's liable to take a lion's share of those delegates, notwithstanding the actual vote count tonight. In Tennessee, I do think it's important because less than a week ago, he was down by 10 points or more.
So Mitt Romney is at least beginning to talk as if he is the candidate. I was interested to hear the statement from him about when he was in Ohio yesterday, I think it was, the hope of the earth statement. Let's listen to Mitt Romney here.
I love this country. I believe in America. I believe you're going to do the right thing tomorrow. I need your vote. Get out there and together we can keep America the hope of the earth. Thank you so much. Great to be with you today. Thank you.
Mean to Mitt Romney, but it sounded like he was struggling to find a sort of shining city on the hill kind of the line and came up with the hope of the earth. Really? Isn't that part of his problem? He doesn't quite hit the nail on the head ever?
Yeah,
Jonathan,
there's no question about it.
Go ahead, man.
Go on, Ed, first, and then I'll come back to Marianne.
Okay. I actually believe that Romney has found the right winning message. The winning message is about the economy. The winning message is about jobs. The winning message is about smaller government and reducing our national debt. So gas prices. Those are messages that Romney can clearly talk about because of his background and experience. That's a winning message virtually coast to coast, particularly in Ohio, particularly in Tennessee.
All right. Marianne?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, first of all, when you look at the polling numbers, people don't like Mitt Romney. His unfavorability rating is much higher than his favorability rating because of this primary process. If people don't like you, they're not going to listen to whatever you have to say. Let's say he clears that hurdle. It's going to be near impossible for him to improve those numbers between now and the general election. Then he has to look at his record, one which is all over the place, but there is no record in any real tangible way of Mitt Romney creating jobs, either in the public sector when he was governor of Massachusetts here or in the private sector. So Mitt Romney, as a general election candidate, has a raft of problems to overcome to beat Barack Obama.
Ed, how much concern is there in the sort of establishment Republican circles about Mitt Romney as a candidate? I mean, whatever way anybody spins it, the Republican Party as a whole, as a unified party, has not embraced Mitt Romney, has it?
I think they have embraced him. And look, the process, the way we've set the process up, which we probably need to rethink later on, has back-ended some of these delegates. So what you're seeing is, a longer, more democratic process. And frankly, Mitt Romney will probably come out of this a stronger, more viable candidate. And if I were a supporter of the president, I wouldn't want to talk about the economy either.
Marianne, we talked a lot about Mitt Romney, but let's look at Rick Santorum and Newt Gingrich as well. First of all, I want to play a couple of sound bites of each of them trying to show that they are still relevant here. Here's Rick Santorum and Newt Gingrich.
Don't listen to the polls. Don't listen to all the media hype and all the things about what this race is about. Just focus in on whether we want a man who can stand up and paint a very different vision for this country.
One of my competitors, Governor Romney, yesterday said I was pandering. He said nobody knows the UB at 250. Well, let me say up front, of course nobody knows UB at 250. But there's this thing called setting goals. It's not called pandering, it's called leadership.
Let's look at these two now. Rick Santorum first. Does he still have a shot at winning this nomination? And if so, what does he need to do tonight to get the momentum back on his side?
I don't know that he has as much of a shot to get the nomination as it is he can drag this out for Mitt Romney. When you look at Santorum and Gingrich, they had better Senate and congressional campaigns than they do presidential campaigns. Mitt Romney far outstrips them in terms of resources, financial, political, across the board, yet he has not been able to put them away or put this nomination away. And that is what is so revealing. Mitt Romney really isn't the best candidate in the world. He never has been. He only does well when he doesn't have a primary, and we're seeing that in this case. So as long as Santorum and Gingrich have one guy who will continue to write big checks, it's going to be a long time before Mitt Romney puts this nomination away.
Ed, do you think Rick Santorum can regain the momentum here and really make this a fight, or is he really now jockeying just for influence within the party and within the election?
Well, of course, he has a chance because the nomination isn't won yet. But I think we're going to have to be surprised. And the momentum that we've seen the last 3 or 4 days in Ohio and Tennessee, he's going to have to reverse. We've been surprised before, so he still has a shot. With respect to Newt Gingrich, I think that, look, to say that he must win Georgia it's his home state. But he has to prove he can win somewhere else. And the relevancy here is a question of where does this campaign go? If we're talking about the economy, $2.50 a gallon of gas, a quality energy plan that's laid out by Gingrich, that is a direct discussion that the Republicans should, in fact, take to the president. After all, gasoline was $1.80 when Obama took the oath of office, and now it's hovering about $4+. And so it's a big issue, particularly it's a hidden inflation issue, particularly hitting the lower and middle class of this country the hardest.
Ed, let me stick with you for 1 second. Is it time, or will it be time tomorrow morning, for Newt Gingrich to get out of this race and make it a straight fight between the moderate wing of the Republican Party, represented by Mitt Romney, and the more conservative wing, represented by Rick Santorum?
I disagree with the premise of the discussion about the more moderate versus the more conservative wing. It may be time, or at least may be the beginning, of us to, as a party, to review what has gone on. So if tonight Mitt Romney wins Ohio and Tennessee, obviously he's going to do very well in Virginia. He's going to do very well in Massachusetts, Vermont. We're talking across the board, virtually across the board. And at the end of the day, there's got to be a discussion. It is now time to wind this thing back so we can focus on what our true goal is. There's agreement among Romney supporters, among Paul supporters, Santorum and Gingrich supporters that President Obama cannot be reelected come November. That's the focus.
Marianne, a couple of our viewers writing in here about Mitt Romney, and you know him well, being from Massachusetts. I just want to get your thoughts on these. Don Kunzler says, I like Romney because he's a very honest man. He does what we want him to do. Charles Reese says, I have a theory about Mitt and connecting with people. It isn't so much that Mitt can't connect with people, it's that people are not connecting with Mitt. He brings a whole plethora of leadership skills from business and government to the table. He has a ton of good qualities that people refuse to see or acknowledge. Was that a fair comment, that we perhaps in the media, he's not getting a fair portrayal?
Well, I think you don't get a second chance to make a good first impression. This is the second time around the block for Mitt Romney running for the presidency. And he doesn't seem to have grown in the process. In the beginning of this campaign, people talked about the fact he was more relaxed and connecting and all this stuff. The poll numbers have not borne that out. The burden is on the candidate. And the stubborn fact of presidential campaigns is whoever has the better favorability ratings always wins. George W. Bush, far more popular than Al Gore, even though when you looked at the polls, people agreed with Gore on the issues all day long. Same with John Kerry and George W. Bush. Barack Obama, far more popular than John McCain when it came down to the election on personal terms. So that is, you cannot change that. If you don't hit that first number, if you're not more popular personally, you cannot begin to get people to listen to you, believe you, trust you, and vote for you. That is the challenge for Mitt Romney.
Marianne, let me stick with you here, because I got another question from another of our viewers, Mike Carter, who says, if Romney's such a weak candidate, the advisor for Senator Kerry should be very happy with him as the Republican nominee. Why is she and the Obama campaign directing all their focus on him then? Curious. So explain, why are you directing all your focus on Mitt Romney?
Because he's probably the nominee, and as someone who's been watching him since 1994 when he ran against Ted Kennedy, I've never thought, I think this is a tough election, not because Mitt Romney's going to be a tough candidate. He's never been a great candidate. That is a fact. He's won one race in his whole life by 5 points, and it was for governor of Massachusetts, okay? So, but I think this is going to be a tough race because people in this country are so unhappy, they want to send a message to both President Obama and the nominee, if it's Romney, to say, you know what, this has been a horrible couple of years. We want you to feel as much pain as we've felt these last few years. Now fix these problems. And I think that's going to be a problem for everyone else on the ballot in 2012. So I'm just calling him as I see him. I've been watching this guy for a very long time. At the end of this, as I think we're seeing now, he's not a great candidate.
Ed, to quote Shakespeare, doth the lady protest too much? Are Democrats really worried about Mitt Romney?
No, the lady, I will say, the lady was exactly correct. She basically said that people are unhappy with this administration, and I agree. And so Mitt Romney will ultimately be the nominee for the party, and I understand the focus of the Democrats, but she is right. People are unhappy with the economy. They're unhappy with the role and the scope and size of government. They're unhappy with the long-term debt issue, that we look more like Greece in the future. They're unhappy generally with the way government is being run by Barack Obama, and it's time that we move him out. That's the issue here. And let me go back. There seems to be a knock on Mitt Romney connecting with voters. I would suggest that we look at the polling numbers that came out 2 or 3 weeks ago that show that he was behind by double digits in Ohio, that he was behind by double digits in Tennessee. Those numbers now have closed, and in fact the momentum appears that Romney has a good shot at winning both Ohio and Tennessee. 2 weeks ago, you would not be saying that. So there is a connection going on, and so so I think that this is overblown. Mitt Romney is a quality candidate with a winning message. Some of the message is playing, frankly, on the unhappiness and the dissatisfaction of this administration in dealing with things that matter. No energy policy, so a dismissal of the pipeline when gasoline is now at $4.50. No policy around getting government to pull back and letting private entrepreneurship move the economy forward. No confidence in this administration to pull back government regulations so that the free enterprise system can drive us out of the recession.
All right, Marianne, I've got to let you have a chance to come back on that, and we're going to be hearing from President Obama, of course, today in a interestingly timed press conference, shall we say, right in the middle of Super
Smart.
Tuesday. What do you expect to hear from the president at this press conference, and how would you answer the criticisms of him that Ed just made?
Well, look, I think President Obama is very smart strategically to have a press conference today, because on Super Tuesday, with all the eyes on the Republicans and the candidates we've just talked about, it's an opportunity for him to draw a very sharp contrast between himself, Mitt Romney, Rick Santorum, and Newt Gingrich. He met with Netanyahu yesterday. You'll hear him, I think, talk about a whole host of things today. And so people have another chance, first chance in a long time, to put, the Republican candidates and President Obama side by side tonight, when a lot of people will be paying attention across the country because of Super Tuesday. That's really smart, because Barack Obama, head and shoulders better than any one of these guys running, number one. Number two, my blanket response to Ed in all of his criticisms is the fact that no one, and I mean no one, has laid a glove on Mitt Romney. Not even a flea flick, okay? All of the mistakes have been his own so far. Gingrich, Santorum, I mean, go down the list. The fact that the USA Today op-ed just came out today, which you could find on Google, that Romney wrote about health care in 2009. I mean, this guy hasn't had a glove laid on him once, and yet he cannot put this nomination away. Everything we hear about him cinching this thing, I've heard since last September. It's like Groundhog Day. So I think Mitt Romney, if he's the nominee, up against President Obama, I have no doubts President Obama wins that re-election, wins that election against Mitt Romney. I just think people want everyone on the ballot in 2012, Republican or Democrat, to let them know how steamed they are about the state of things.
Ed, what do you think of President Obama arranging this press conference for today? Smart strategically, as Marianne says, and what do you expect to hear from him at this press conference?
Well, it's Groundhog Day. Again, I agree with Marianne. It's Groundhog Day. It's politics over substance, style over substance. The press conference today will not lower by 1 penny gasoline. It will not produce one job. It will not withdraw regulation, overburdensome regulation. It will not do one substantive thing to help the plight of middle-class America today. Not one thing. And so instead what we have is politically a shrewd move to try to have the spotlight shine on the president during Super Tuesday. But realistically, not one substantive position is going to get taken. It's simply a political stunt.
A political stunt, Marianne?
No, not at all. I mean, it's smart. He has the bully pulpit any day he wants to use it. You have Netanyahu in Washington around AIPAC and talks with the president. I think it's very smart. People are talking about a lot of things, including gas prices. He has the opportunity to talk about all of them. This doesn't have to be a one-sided conversation, and he's doing his job at the same time. So the fact is, this country is better off in turning the corner from when he first inherited all these messes, if you want to go back into that again. I mean, every time a Democrat takes over after a Bush, it's like, being the parade behind the elephant and you got the broom, okay? We've seen this video. Clinton had to do the same thing. Barack Obama's doing the same thing now. I think, the fact that President Obama has decided to use today to make sure everybody hears both sides of what's going on and contrasts himself with these guys running, Very smart all day long.
All right, Marianne Marsh, former advisor to Senator John Kerry, and Ed Pozzuoli, former advisor to John Huntsman's presidential campaign. Great to have you both here. It's going to be a fascinating night. We'll get your thoughts, I'm sure, in the next few days on how it all plays out. Great to have you. Have a good Super Tuesday, everybody.
Thanks, Jonathan. You
all
too.
right.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Let's turn to foreign policy now. You may have heard Senator John McCain on the floor of the Senate yesterday pleading for the United States to take the lead in organizing a campaign of air